that this session is being recorded. I see it now. So let's get started. Let's go on into Canvas here. So I see announcements, and let's take a look. So I think it was last night that I created this, or yes, yesterday. How do I take my test? So I think this is exactly what you're asking about. And let's go into this announcement. So how do I take my exam test? They're interchangeable words. Open the Chrome browser, open ALEKS, close all other applications. Click on the main menu, the 3 horizontal line segments upper left of the screen. And I can show you what those are by switching into ALEKS right now. Maybe I want this one. They're talking about these bars. Okay? So you want to click on those bars. Now, if I go back to the Canvas announcement, and you can't flip like this on test day, so you want to be aware of that. And then you want to click on assignments. So if you click on assignments in ALEKS, well, that's interesting. I am here. You want to click on assignments in ALEKS, which is right here. And then you want to click on test 1, which is right here. That's the next step. Now it's going to give me this screen, and I can't go any further than this because it's going to throw me out of all my other applications, and I don't want that. So I'm right here. At this point, you will notice it says click on Launch Lockdown Browser and Webcam, bottom of the screen. So what is happening with that is this is what you would click on. It's really quite seamless. It's not like this in the other testing software that I use for my other classes that are not college algebra. This is really nice. So you click on this, and then after that, you want to read all the documentation on the screen that you'll see after that step. And then you'll click on this Open Lockdown Browser, OEM, near the top of the screen. Click on Close Applications. You may not get this step. I got it sometimes and I didn't get it other times. So then after you've done this and you've taken care of this, if you need to, you may not get that, you will be taken through a series of steps. And I want to caution you, these steps may be out of order because I didn't see anything with the definitive order on it. I saw conflicting information, if you will. And so at some point, you're going to see all of these steps. Terms of use, webcam check, $10 payment, additional instructions, guidelines plus tips, student photo. So that means I just want to take a current picture of you when at test time, show your picture ID, like your driver's license or your NWAC ID card, environment check. They'll explain how to do that, facial detection check, begin exam. So when you get to begin exam, there'll be a place when you're going through this respondents steps here that you'll click on begin exam, upper middle of the screen. And then you want to click on start at the bottom left of the screen. And when you're finished with the exam, click on submit assignment, lower right of the screen. Click on submit assignment again in the middle of the screen. Click on exit lockdown browser, bottom left of screen. So upload exactly 2 sheets of written work to Canvas within 15 minutes of submitting assignment. You will not receive your score on this assignment until all written work for all students has been graded. So you are allowed to take an extra sheet of paper and copy all of this down on that paper so you can have it right by your side when you're taking the test. Does that make sense? You can print this off or you can copy it down. If you have a printer, you can print this off right from Canvas. I do it all the time. And if you don't, you can copy it down on an additional sheet of paper, and that will not be a testing violation. Does this make more sense? I know we've got a couple more students in here now. So I had a student in here, I think she needed to leave because her daughter was getting up from a nap. And so I'm in the process of going through some Canvas announcements. So this first Canvas announcement is really an important one. You are allowed to print this off or have one additional sheet of paper to copy all of this down. So you've got this by your side when you take your test. So that will allow you then to follow all the steps. So this is a very, very important announcement, probably the one that's most important. So does anybody have any questions on this newest how do I take my exam, also known as a test question, which I answered to the best of my ability. I spent quite a lot of time yesterday drafting all of this and writing all of this and making sure it was in Canvas for y'all. So I hope that helps clear some questions up. There's been some talk about and questions from students where you go to take your test. You're actually taking your test in ALEKS. We will talk about the written work though. That written work will be uploaded to Canvas. So feel free at any time to unmute your mic and just say, I've got a question. And so we can answer questions, because this is really about what you need from me. So let's go on. If no one has any questions, does anybody have any questions on this? You're totally allowed to print this off or to copy it onto a blank sheet of white paper to have by your side while you're taking the test. Has a resources so you can see what's going on and make sure that you are following all the steps. I'm not going to require you to memorize all these steps. Okay, let's look at another announcement. It's working a little slow here, even though I'm close to the router. Let me make sure I'm on the 5G. Well, I guess that's okay. So we know about the Test 1 review conference if you're here. The Test 1 testing window. Test 1 will appear. It appeared at 8 a.m. this morning, and then it will disappear on Wednesday, this Wednesday at 10 p.m. You will have 2 hours to take the test. Uploading written work to Canvas for all exams. So this will, what we're talking about here, you will do four times this semester. So let's talk about this announcement, another very important announcement. See the Canvas announcement entitled Proctoring Testing Violations and Consequences for All Course Exams. We'll look at that in a little bit. Not following all steps is considered a testing violation. Not following, so you are required to follow all steps in this announcement, or else it's a testing violation, and you don't want one of those. I had one this summer, and I consulted with one of our co-chairs in our department, and she said to give her a 0 for the final because of it. So you really do not want a testing violation. Each exam has 2 parts and will take place in ALEKS. Part 1, that's the written work portion. Part 1 is worth 49 points and will have 7 written work problems, each worth 7 points. So 7 times 7 is 49. That's where those 49 points come from. You are required to upload your detailed written work to Canvas for these problems using exactly 2 sheets of paper. You are required to do so within 15 minutes of submitting your exam. So you have 7 problems. So on the first sheet of paper, Neatly show detailed written work for problems 1, 2, 3, and 4 in numerical order on the first sheet of paper using only one side of the paper. Be sure to write dark. I did a lot of experimenting this summer, and I've done a lot in the past with teaching online. I was one of the ECE online faculty for 3 years, and I saw a lot of tests going back and forth, and so I understand what's happening. You want to be sure you write dark, and I would highly recommend a pencil because you need to show work for 4 of problems on one page. So what we do is we tend to make a cross, take a piece of 8.5 by 11-inch paper, and you take and make a line down the center of it, and then you turn it on its side and make a line down the center of that, and you've got 4 boxes. So there's enough room there if you plan your space well to do that. And you only want to use one side of the paper. Pen shows through paper, and it's really hard for me to, if I let you use the 2 sides, it's really hard for me to see which work and to figure out which work is for on the front side and which work is on the back side, particularly when the paper's thin. So you want to make sure you're just following these rules or you'll have a testing violation. Be sure you're using a pencil because you can erase and save some of that space that you may need to put written work in. And it needs to be neatly presented. And I also want to make one other comment. I can't turn back the test to your ALEKS course or students until all of the tests are graded. So if I'm having a student holding it up in the class because they didn't follow the rules and have a testing violation, we don't want to do that. That means you're going to there's going to be a delay in getting your test results back. You will not see your score the day of the test. So you want to keep that in mind too. So we're all in this together, and I'll make this as fast as possible. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I also have 5 other I have a total of 6 classes this semester that I am collecting written work from this week. So I have a lot of work ahead of me. And if I get slowed down, I'm not going to be able to turn those tests around quickly. So it's important to use pencil for a variety of reasons. Pen tends to show through white paper, and also you can erase with a pencil and save some space. And then, so that's the first sheet of paper. Show detailed written work for problems 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they must all be on that sheet of paper. And we've done this a lot in the math department where we require 4 problems per page, and we usually really don't have much issue with it over the years. Neatly show detailed written work for problems 5, 6, and 7 in numerical order on the second sheet of paper using only one side of the paper. Be sure to write dark. That's so I can read it. So when you upload your written work to Canvas, it's going to degrade a little bit. So I need to be able to read it, and that's why I need to write dark. So if you're tend to write light, you want to, for this test, make sure you're trying to write darker than you usually write. So I'd appreciate that. Now the rubric, it's really difficult in math to give a detailed rubric. Each problem is worth 7 points. So let me give you an idea of how I grade. You can get 2 points, 4 points, 6 points, or 7 points. 2 points if the first step, including math notation, is correct. 4 points if about half the steps in math notation are correct. 6 points if almost all the steps in math notation are correct, and 7 points if all steps in math notation are correct. Uploading written work to Canvas. You are required to upload these 2 sheets within 15 minutes of submitting your exam. So you only have 2 sheets to upload. You all uploaded your ID, your government issued picture ID at the beginning of the semester, as well as a copy of your written work. So I know you all already know how to do this. So I'm just reminding you of that, and to have two sheets to upload is not really a big deal. I know my older daughter, she is a junior in high school, and she she goes to Haas Hall and they've got to upload several more sheets than that within 5 minutes. So it's should be plenty of time. Submit sheets in order. So you want to make sure you're submitting the sheet with 1, 2, 3, and 4 on it, and then the sheet with 5, 6, and 7 on it. So it will be helpful for me to have it in the correct order. It will allow me to grade faster. For information on using your computer or smartphone to take a picture of your written work, this was all in blue here, was all in Canvas at the beginning of the semester. So I am just pointing you to that with the blue. That's just telling you how to get back to what you saw at the beginning of the semester. Now in purple, this is what's new. Upload your 2 sheets of written work. Do the following. Click on modules, click on upload written work here, select the correct exam number. It's really self-explanatory. I will take you and show you in a minute where you go. But I did want to talk about part 2 a bit. And we have 49 points for the written work, and there's 51 points left over, so you will have 10 problems. These problems will be graded by Alex. You will get the score that Alex gives you for these. You can use your last 2 sheets of blank paper for these problems. Do not upload these sheets. And remember, you get an additional sheet of paper to copy down all of those testing instructions. So you'll have 5 total sheets of paper. 2 of them you're going to use for uploading your written work. The other 2 you're going to use for scratch paper for the last 10 problems. And then you've got the 1 sheet of paper that you can use to write down, how do I take a test? So we've got that. So let me show you where you go to upload your written work. So I am going to go to Home. That's where we enter Canvas. We all enter Canvas on the home page. And then let's go to the student view here. And I'm trying to keep your course simple. You notice the home page is what we enter on. Syllabus, that's where you can click on to read the syllabus if you're needing a question answered that the syllabus can answer it. Then there's modules and announcements. So we're not seeing anything where to upload the written work and announcements since we've been in there. So chances are it's in modules. So let's click on modules. We've got the video links here. I have been putting some of the videos in from my previous classes. That is my remote classes. I teach 2 Alex classes remotely and 2 online. So here you see upload written work for all exams, and you see upload exam 1 written work here. So this is our first exam. So that's where you are going to want to go to upload your written work. And we have already started this. And maybe I didn't reset the student. Let me just try to reset the student here. I was playing around here. So let me do this one more time. Go to modules and see if we can see how this works. Oh, submit assignment. So if you go up here to submit assignment, what happens? You can upload your file here. Choose file from your desktop. Then you can add another file. So you can certainly upload 2 sheets of written work here. And then you click on submit the assignment. It works just like it worked earlier this semester at the start of the semester. So it really shouldn't be anything new for you. There's great markup tools in Canvas, so I shouldn't have any problem with those. I practiced using those earlier this semester. So let's leave the student view. So the point is you go to modules to upload your written work. So let's see if I need to talk about anything else in terms of the announcements. Required for proctored testing. Let's just take a look at this. Again, it's telling us that we want to see that proctor testing violations and consequence document, and we need to take a look at that. The only resources you are allowed to use once the exam begins are the following. Using any other resources considered a testing violation. A TI graphing calculator. See the syllabus for approved graphing calculators. I would encourage you to have one. There are many topics in ALEKS that don't have the calculator available, but I let students use a TI graphing calculator. 5 sheets of 8 by 11-inch paper. You need 2 for uploading your written work. You need 2 for scratch work for the other 10 problems. And you have 1 additional sheet to copy down the how do I take a test announcement. You're allowed that announcement, to copy that announcement down or to print it off, either one, and have it by your side. Any other Canvas announcement, and here it is, a copy of the Canvas announcement entitled, How Do I Take My Exam Test? That's the 5th sheet of paper. You can copy this Canvas announcement onto a sheet of paper right here, this particular announcement that has this title, and you're allowed that to keep it by your side because it will guide you through the testing process, the checking before you test and the testing process. Any other Canvas announcements are considered a testing violation. Pencil. I would encourage you to use pencil. That way you can make the most use of your space by erasing. If I have to, and pens bleed through the paper, and if you are writing on back and front on thin paper, it might be hard for me to tell. They may overlap each other, and it may be tough for me to grade it. I saw this when I was testing this summer. The following are required for proctor testing: a high-speed internet connection, close proximity to a router. I almost thought that my printer was gone a few days ago. It's 10 years old. It wasn't. I kept trying, I unplugged it. I did all the standard stuff, and I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do? And then I moved closer to the router, went into the room with the router, and guess what? It worked. So it was just having trouble communicating, really. So it's important to be close to a router. You need a webcam. You need a functioning microphone, internal or external. And this, I believe, was in the syllabus at the beginning of the semester. Windows or Mac operating system, desktop or laptop. Government issued photo ID. NWAC ID card is acceptable. You did upload your IDs at the beginning of the semester, and thank you for that. But those are just for clarification purposes. You still need to prove you are the person taking the test, and so you need to do that for each test as well. One-time fee of $10 paid online to respondents immediately before you take your first exam. So the MyLab math folks are having to pay more money than the people using Respondents. And actually, I like the Respondents product better. So it's only $10, and I'm happy with that. And you will do that prior to your first exam. So when you take your exam this week, make sure that you've got a credit card or debit card or 2 available to pay the $10. And you can also use PayPal. Now, I wouldn't pay any attention to this document. I did it all myself, and I feel like testing it on my computer with the ALEKS software that we're using right now is much more accurate. So I really wouldn't pay attention to this at all. I should probably take it out. Any questions on required for proctor testing? Let's go through and take a look at the announcements again. I want to make sure I'm hitting on all the important ones. Yeah, I think we only have one more. Let's look at the proctor testing violations. Now, there may seem like there's a lot of them, and there are, because we need all of the protocols that we use in the classroom when we're testing in the classroom, plus all the protocols that the testing center uses. Plus, keep in mind, you don't have a live proctor there. either the testing center at NWAC, they watch people testing from their screens. And so we don't have that here, and we don't have a live proctor in the classroom here. So we need additional protocols for proctor testing on top of that. So that does seem like a lot. And I chose to write this from what are violations, from the point of view of what are violations. The following is a partial list of testing protocol violations. More violations may be added. We didn't start using proctor testing like that until this summer. And honestly, we didn't have that many classes in the math department. So let's look at these. Not taking exam at home. So you must take your exam at home. Not complying with all directions in the Canvas announcements entitled Uploading Written Work to Canvas and required for proctor testing. We already went over those. Not being in a quiet, private, well-lit environment. What's going to happen is the respondents monitor is going to take a snapshots of you at set times during your test, and you have up to 2 hours to take it. And they're also going to take a video of you. So they need, in order to take a video of you, they need it to be a well-lit environment. So you want to make sure you have good lighting wherever you're taking your test, and that it's quiet, because they're going to record everything that's going on. So, and the private comes in there too. That means it's quiet and so forth. So another violation is denying respondents access to your camera or computer, not presenting a valid photo ID. Test taker photo does not match photo ID. So the current test taker photo, the one that they're going to take a photo of you on exam day, a current photo, and then they're going to ask you to present your photo ID. So they're going to decide based on their artificial intelligence whether they match. So that's a possible violation right there. Requires more investigation. Communicating with others during testing is not allowed. Wearing listening devices such as earbuds or headphones during testing is not allowed. Shifting out of webcam view. Now, this one I need to talk about because we're going to be writing down your written work, and it's hard to stay in the webcam view when you're putting your head down to write your written work, and I get that. So that's okay. But try to stay in webcam view as much as possible, because otherwise you're going to have a lot of flags that I have to look at. Attempting to open another browser window, you don't want to do that. Alex is requiring you to use the lockdown browser anyway. Attempting to navigate away from the test, using resources other than instructor-approved resources during testing. So you're allowed a TI graphing calculator, you're allowed 5 written blank sheets of paper, you're allowed a pencil, and on one sheet of paper, you're allowed to write down that how do you test announcement. Or you can just print it off on a blank sheet of paper and count that as one of your sheets of paper. And these have come up as more and more of us have done proctor testing as it goes on, and we keep adding to the list. So attempting to navigate, this is a violation, attempting to navigate from the test, using resources other than instructor approved, no duplicate computer monitors. I know I've been using my Windows computer to put up Disney Plus movies, and we've been using our TV as a monitor by just using the HDMI cable. It works great, but we cannot have that happen for a test. No mobile devices, no watches, no music, no looking up, no food or gum. You are allowed something to drink. So you don't want to leave the testing environment. So make sure you're going to the bathroom right before you take the test. No speaking out loud. This is what the student violated this summer that I was talking to you about and got a 0 on the final. She left the testing environment for over 2 minutes. I thought maybe she had needed an emergency trip to the bathroom. she came back with what looked to be a smartphone in one hand and a wad of paper in the other. So I talked to one of our department co-chairs, and we agreed that she should get a 0 for the test. So for the final, no less. And that final has to count. So that's what it is what it is. And, it's not good, but just to say, you don't want to leave the testing environment unless it's like a health emergency. Speaking out loud, if you speak out loud, that is a violation. Wouldn't talk out loud in a classroom or in testing center, so same thing is true here. Testing protocol violation consequences. If your testing session is found to violate one or more testing protocols, your grade on the respective exam will be reduced by 50%. So what does that mean? Say you got an 80% on the exam. Then I would have to take half of 80% and you would be down to 40% on the exam. You may be denied access to future exams until a satisfactory communication with your instructor has been achieved. So you would also be required to have a private meeting with me about it. And our college really believes in the proctored testing so much, our math department and our division believe in it so much that they're really on the instructor's side here if the instructor can produce enough evidence. And keep in mind, we can get the video from respondents and use that as part of our case. So that's what we've got going for us this semester. So I think that's all I want to say about Canvas. Let me come back to all of you in Teams and ask if you have any questions. So I can put the chat on here. Do you have any questions so far? I just felt it was very, very important for me to talk about those announcements. And I'm going to make the video recording available to the other students in the course and encourage them to watch it. Everybody good so far? You all good? You're more than welcome to speak out and ask questions. That's what I'm here for. I love questions. So just for a quick couple minutes, I do want to look at Alex a little bit, just to get some things in the video. Let's go back to the internet here, and I will click on, I think the Alex timed out. Let's see if I can log in again real quick and show you what I want to show you. I don't get to have students in my online class very often. I am considering actually asking our department if they will allow online courses to have a meeting or two at the start of the semester so that we can go over all of this. So I am going to go into the student view here. It should be set up just fine because I just made sure it was done so right before this meeting. So I have different ways to set the student view. And there we go. So you've got notifications that show up here. So if I click on those, it's going to tell me when the test 1 is due and when test 1 review no credit is due. That's a great practice assignment. If for whatever reason you did not learn a topic that is in the test 1 review objective, if you don't learn it or aren't given credit for learning it by Alex, then you're not going to see it in the test 1 review objective, unfortunately, but you will see all of the possible topics that the test covers in here, this test 1 review no credit assignment, and including what we're going to talk about today. So all 25 possible test topics are in this no credit assignment. So I wanted to make sure that I spoke about that. And these more, some people are calling these more, some people are calling these main menus, and Alex, it's really a main menu. Throughout the course, you can go to the calendar. The gradebook matches my gradebook. Assignments might have incorrect scores. So you want to go to the grade book to see your scores in this course, because this grade book matches my grade book. There are some reports, there's instructor resources, there are some student reports if you want to play around with those, instructor resources. So the notes that I'm going over today are in the test reviews. I'm doing the test 1 review today. So that's where that's located. So I just want to point those few things out. So now let's talk about the written work topics. So I'm giving you the 7 written work topics. You know exactly what they're going to be. You just don't know what particular question you are going to be given. So let's talk about those. I will go over here and I will go back one because I was doing something with that second topic. So let's take a look at these 7 topics. You will definitely see this. Be asked to simplify an expression like this. And I'm not looking, do you have a question? Anybody have a question? Feel free to interrupt me if you don't understand something, because I don't want to go too far without you. The purpose of this is for you to understand. So I'm not just looking for the final answer. I'm looking for process, and I'm looking for some processes along the way too. That's why this is a written work problem. So we want to simplify this. Remember, we can only cancel factors, not terms. That's why we spend so much time in college algebra courses on factoring. This is really 15 plus a negative 75. So I couldn't cancel a 5 in here with a 5 in here, for example, because that would be canceling terms. There's an understood plus sign here, and terms are added. So you can't cancel like that. You've got to be very careful when you're canceling. You should know the reason why you can cancel, not just cancel. So that's what I would encourage you to know. We first want to start with the square root of 75. Let's look at 75 and see how we can break it down. 75 is divisible by 5 because it ends in a 5. So if I take my calculator and take 75 divided by 5, I get 15. 15 is also divisible by 5, so it's 5 times 3. So 5 and 3 are primes, so I know I can't break these numbers down anymore, these roots here. 5 times this 5 times 3. So I'm going to take out 75 and replace it by a 5 and another 5 and a 3. And that's all multiplied together because it has to give me back 75 when I multiply these together. 25 times 3, which is 75. Now, ever how you're comfortable taking a square root, if you know that if you have 2 of the same factor, you can take it out as a single one, that's fine. If you want to view this 5 times 5 as 25 and then take the square root of 25 and get 5, that's fine. Just show me your written work. And then in that case, we would have just a 3 left. Or you can go through this step if you want. You don't really need that step. So after we have figured out how to simplify the square root of 75, we take out the square root of 75 and replace it by 5 square root of 3 right here. Meanwhile, we can break this 15 down into it's 3 times 5, and this 35 is 5 times 7. And now we can factor. So whether you use, so in this problem, you want to make sure you're factoring to get the right answer. So let's factor. I see in this term, terms are added, so there's an addition sign right here. You can sneak in an addition sign here. So terms are added. So we have a 5 here and a 5 here, so we can pull a 5 out. And let's do that. So in this term right here, the 5 went out front, so there's a 3 left. Then subtraction's really adding a negative, so we really have terms. So we're going to copy this subtraction sign down, and this 5 went out front, and then we only have square root of 3 left. You can go backwards. 5 times 3 is 15. And 5 times negative square root of 3 is negative 5 square root of 3. You can go backwards to check. It's really a good thing to do. And then after we have factored out the 5, why can anybody tell me why I can cross out these 5s? 5 times 5 divided by 5 is what? What number is that? 5 divided by 5 is 1. And 1 times what's left is what's left. 1's the multiplicative identity, and that is why we can cancel like that. So if you understand why you can cancel, then you're less likely to make canceling errors. So what's left is our answer, 3 minus square root of 3 over 7. Anybody have any questions on one of the must-see written work topics that you're going to see on your exam? You feel free to give me a shout out if you want to understand something. I want you to understand. I don't want you to sit there and say have something little cause you from doing something great. So, and I think we all find that in life something. Gee, if I knew it was that simple, I would have tried to find the answer a long time ago. So it's important. I'm here for y'all. Now, there's this problem right here. 9v squared, we want to solve this, solve for v. 9v squared on the left side equals 3v minus 25 on this side. Now you can go through and solve it by factoring if you want, like this. It's a pretty laborious process. You don't have to do it like that. What we have here is the highest power that we see on a variable is a 2. So we really have a quadratic equation. So I think it's best if we solve this by the quadratic formula. Why not? We've already got this work down here. Let's look at a different way to solve the problem. So let me come back up to y'all, and I am going to unshare my screen, and then I'm going to share it again using the Microsoft Teams whiteboard. And why it works like that, I don't know. They should have a way where it can just work integrated, but they don't. I already wrote it up here. Now, I will tell you that unfortunately, Microsoft does not record the whiteboard in its recording. So I wrote it up here. I copied down the problem and I wrote down the quadratic formula. That's all I've done so far. So let me get a different color. So the first thing we need to do is get this all on one side so we can easily identify our A, our B, and our C. It's kind of tricky if you have it on this side. You might not get the correct ones, and then you've got minuses in here and so forth. So it's just easier to write it all on one side. So let me go ahead and write it all on one side up here. So it's 9v squared. And then when we move this 30v over, it's got a plus sign. It goes over on the other side as a minus. 30v. Whoops, don't want to note. B. And then the minus 25 goes over as a plus 25. So we really are looking at this. And then it's going to be equal to 0. So in order to use a quadratic formula, you need a quadratic equation with 0 on one side by itself. That's what's required to use the quadratic formula. So our A is 9, our B is negative 30, our C is 25, and you want this side written in descending power order. You want the square term first. This really is v to the first. You want the first degree term next, and you want the constant last. And you want a positive leading coefficient. Much easier to work it that way. So let's go ahead and work it. And when we work it, we're going to get equals here. We've got x equals negative b. So negative b would be negative. Now b is negative 30. So negative 30 plus or minus. Remember, quadratic equations likely have two different solutions, but not always. Plus or minus the square root. Forgive me, I'm writing with my trackpad, with my finger on my Mac trackpad. Square root, b, what is b? It's negative 30. Please put that in parentheses because you want to square that negative sign. Negative 30 squared. And then, so it's negative b minus 4. A is the coefficient of 9, or coefficient in front of the square term, which is 9. So this is 9 times 9 in parentheses. So then we want our C. Our C is constant, 25. Okay, so that's what we have. And this is all over 2a, 2 times 9. So the next thing I would do is figure out what's inside this radical sign here. So I'm just going to try to do that on my calculator all at once. So I'm going to put parenthesis, negative 30, negative in the bottom row of my TI calculator, 30, parenthesis, Mountain Peak, which is above the division sign. That'll raise it to an exponent. 2, right arrow down to the normal line of writing, minus 4 times 9 times 25. And I get, believe it or not, I get this. Square root of 0. What's the square root of 0? Can anybody tell me what the square root of 0 is? So what two numbers multiply together to give me 0? That would be 0. So this is much easier to do it this way, I think, than the factoring approach. So what do we have now? This is really a negative out here. I don't know if you can make sure it looks a little brighter there. So what do we have now? We've got, this is equal to negative of a negative 30, which is positive 30, plus or minus 0, all over 2 times 9, which is 18. So whether we're taking 30 plus, if we take 30 plus 0, we get 30. If we take 30 minus 0, we still get 30. So up in the numerator, we have 30. And in the denominator, we have 18, and we just need to reduce them. So you can math frac on the calculator, or you could break this down. Ever how you want to do this. You could break 30 down into its factors. So this would be 3 times 10. And 10 is 2 times 5. And 18 we can break down into 9 times 2. So 9 is 3 times 3. Whoops. Didn't get the right start there. 9 is 3 times 3. So 3 times 3 times 2. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. So we can get rid of those. And what's left? 2 times 5 is, we can cross out the 2's. Cross out the 2's as well. And what are we left with? We are left with 5/3. That's our answer. And if we go back down, or if we go, actually I go back down to my desktop. If we write that down, that 5/3, if we write that down and I unshare this and I reshare what I was sharing before, and I have to do that like this because I'm sharing my desktop. And I go back down here where we were looking before. Answer 5/3, same answer. Two different, completely different ways to do this problem. So whichever way you want. And oh, by the way, these notes are in Alex, under instructor resources on the main menu. So let's go and take a look at topic number 3, written work topic number 3 on the Pythagorean theorem. I taught trig this morning, and it's very important to understand the Pythagorean theorem if you're going to go on and take trig. So let's read the problem. The shorter leg of a right triangle is 6 meters shorter than the longer leg. The hypotenuse is 6 meters longer than the longer leg. Find the side lengths of the triangle. So we want to draw a right triangle, and right means there's a 90-degree angle right here. The two sides that make up the right angle, that form that right angle, are called the legs. The opposite side from the right angle here is called the hypotenuse. So the shorter leg, let's read this again. The shorter leg of a right triangle is 6 meters shorter than the longer leg. And the hypotenuse is 6 meters longer than the longer leg. Boy, we don't know anything really about this longer leg, so let's call it X. So they're mentioning the longer leg in this sentence and in this sentence. So let's let that longer leg be X. So when I drew my right triangle, I drew it so that one leg was clearly longer than the other. So we want to let this leg here be X. So let's go back and reread. The shorter leg of a right triangle is 6 meters shorter than the longer leg. Well, we're letting the longer leg be X. 6 meters shorter means X minus 6. So the other leg is X, we can represent as X minus 6. And then the hypotenuse is 6 meters longer than the longer leg. So we're going to start, the longer leg is X, and this is 6 meters longer. So it would be X plus 6. So that's how we can represent this side. Now the Pythagorean theorem is right here. It says that if you take one leg squared plus the other leg squared, it equals a hypotenuse squared. So the sum of the squares of the legs equals a hypotenuse squared. So let's look at the legs. Let's take one leg and square it. So let's take this leg, X minus 6, and square it. So we need parentheses around all of that because all of it's getting squared. Plus, let's take the other leg, which is X, and square it, equals the hypotenuse, which is X plus 6 in parentheses squared. So now we can work the problem. So exponents are mathematicians' way of telling how many of this base X minus 6 do we want to multiply together. And we're told that we should be multiplying 2 of the base X minus 6 together. In other words, we want to multiply X minus 6 times X minus 6 off to the side here. So I just took this, copied it over. 2 of these multiplied together means X minus 6 times X minus 6. We can FOIL First 2 is x squared, outer 2 is minus 6x, inner 2 is minus 6x, for a total of minus 12x. Minus times a minus is a plus, then 6 times 6 is 36. So that's what we get when we do that. Similarly, we can take x plus 6 squared over here. It's 2 of the x plus 6's multiplied together. FOIL of this, get x squared plus 6x, which is plus 12x, plus 36. So we take this out, we put in this right here. We take this out and put in this. First thing we notice is each side has an x squared on it. So we can subtract x squared from both sides, and that would make both of these zeros. So we can cross them out because 0 plus anything is still that thing. What's left? We need to look at this right here and this. Well, we want the x squared to have a positive leading coefficient, and understood in this case to be 1. So let's move these guys over to this side. The opposite of addition, subtraction. The opposite of addition, subtraction. So let's subtract this from both sides. Lining up the like terms over here. So lining up the x's and lining up the constants. So what do we have? This plus this is 0. Well, 12x minus 12x is 0. Plus 36 minus 36 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. So we have 0 on this side. So on this side, we have negative 12 plus negative 12, which is a negative 24 what? X. Negative 24x right here. Right here. Whoops, didn't mean to do that, but it's okay. So here, if you notice, we've got 36 minus 36, that's 0. And then plus this x squared, and we're going to write that first. So this is what we get left. This is what's left. So we want to work with that. So whenever you see a quadratic, you can think about factoring. What can we factor out of this term and this term? They both have an x in it. This has 2 x's in it. This is really x times x. This has a single x. We can certainly factor out an x from each term. If we take one of these x's out, we have one of the x's left inside, minus, and then we're taking this x out, so the 24 is left. You can check this, go backwards. X times x is x squared. X times negative 24 is negative 24x. So you can check by going backwards if you're unsure, if you're doing it right. So this is what we get. So there's an understood multiplication symbol here. So we're going to set each factor equal to 0, x equals 0, and x minus 24 equals 0. So x is a side. Let's see, what was our x? It was our longer leg. So we can't have a leg be equal to the length of a leg be equal to 0, or we would not, if we could, we would not have a triangle. So we have to throw that possible solution out because it doesn't make sense in the context of this problem. So over here, if we add 24 to both sides, we get x equals 24. So our x that we're looking for here is 24. It's the length of the longer leg. Now, since x is 24, we can plug it in, that 24 in for x, wherever we see an x here, and we get 24 minus 6, which is 18. We get 24 plus 6, which is 30. So those are the lengths, side lengths. The length of the shorter leg is 18. It's shorter because it's 18 smaller than 24. So that's the length of the shorter leg. The length of the longer leg is 24. And the length of the hypotenuse is 30. Does anybody have any questions on this written work topic number 3? You're more than welcome to ask questions. So here we have find all complex solutions of 2x squared plus x plus 6 equals 0. We've got a quadratic equation set equal to 0 because we've got an x squared term. We may or may not have an x term, and we may or may not have a constant term, but we've got it equal to, we do have those terms, and it's equal to 0. So we can solve this perhaps by the quadratic formula. Now, I do want to emphasize that, see if this will work for me. I want to emphasize it's very important to know, oops, I don't want to add a sticky note. I don't know what's up with that. I'm just going to leave it there. I want to write on this. So I do want to emphasize that the square root of -1, does anybody know what the square root of -1 is? It is equal to I, the imaginary unit. It's equal to I. Let me see if I can get that off. So you do want to definitely know this. Even the square root of a negative, anytime you see a negative, you can replace it by a -1. That's really what that negative is. It's a -1. So you want to consider that. The square root of -1 is I. So let's identify our A, B, and C in the quadratic formula. Since this is written in descending power order, our A is 2, our B is an understood 1, and our C is 6. So we're going to use the quadratic formula. X equals -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let's plug in. Negative, just copy it down. B is 1. 1 plus or minus square root b is 1. I always put it in parentheses, whether it's positive or negative, because I am a creature of habit. I want to be accurate, and so I want to have the same SOPs for each standard operating procedure for each time I do it. So because I don't want to forget to do it. So I put 1 in here, put it in parentheses, and square it. -4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is 6. All over 2 times A, which is 2. So I'm going to work with the radicand, what's inside the radical. 1 times 1 is 1, minus 4 times 2 is 8, times 6 is 48. 1 minus 48 is a -47. This negative sign here is really the same as -1. You can take and replace this negative sign with -1. I could sneak a 1 in there. So the square root of -1 is I. So this negative sign comes out as I. So we get I square root of 47. So what do we need to do now? -1 plus or minus I square root of 47 now over 2 times 2, which is 4. There's nothing we can factor out here, so there's no chance of simplifying it. So Alex just wants you to separate the answers. They don't want you to leave it like this. They want the +1 and the stated separately from the one with the minus sign in the middle. Now in Alex, when I do my problems with the quadratic formula, I am able to copy over this one and then paste it after the comma, and then I just change the sign in the middle. So that's how I do it. So you do it that way too. I find that I'm more accurate that way. Any questions on topic number 4 here? So you will see if there is more than one solution, separate them with commas. This too suggests that you are going to have two, definitely suggests you have 2 solutions. So make sure that if you don't get 2 solutions, you understand why, like we saw earlier, the square root of 0 is 0. That makes sense. when you're talking about plus or minus, that you'd only get one solution because of that, but you actually have one solution twice, which means we had a solution there of 5/3, and it was what we call as a zero of multiplicity 2. We'll learn about that later in the course. Okay, so we've got 3 more topics here. Now, solving a rational equation that simplifies to linear. So I just copied this, well, more or less copied this down. So I should say, now I want to just show you that you really, I don't know how many of you have noticed this, but in this particular topic, it's usually the factors. When you factor this, you're going to get this as a factor and this is a factor. It's a little tip there. So I wrote this as 8 over v minus 4 times v minus 5. I'm going to check by foiling. V squared, check. Outer 2, v times negative 5 is negative 5v. Inner 2 is negative 4v. That is negative 9 when you add them together. And then the last 2, negative times negative is a positive. 4 times 5 is 20. So then I'm going to copy over the equal sign. And then I'm going to copy over 1 over v minus 4. And I want to put the parentheses around it so it looks like this. Plus 2 over v minus 5. Put the parentheses around this so it looks like this factor. So what we're looking for is we're looking for the LCD because we want to wipe out the fractions. I mean, there's always going to be an understood 1 there, but we want to wipe out the fractions, basically. We want to get rid of the denominators. That's what we want to do. So let me just show you what's happening here. So what we're going to do is we are going to, first of all, you want to go to your first denominator, and for the least common denominator, just copy it down. Now, what does that give me? That gives me up here v minus 4. Software's a little weird. Times v minus 5. This is, let me see if I can clean this up. Okay, so you see what we've got there. That is, we're going to multiply, imagine multiplying both sides of this equation now by just that. Would that wipe out the denominators? So v minus 4 gets wiped out here. Whoops, v minus 5 gets wiped out. So this v minus 4 cancels with this v minus 4. This v minus 5 cancels with this v minus 5. Now, what if we took it times this term? V minus 4s would cancel. What if we took this times this term? The v minus 5s would cancel. So that's all we need to wipe out each one of these denominators. V minus 4 times v minus 5. So let's do this nicely so you can really see what's going on. We're going to take and multiply both sides of this equation by v minus 4 times v minus 5. So v minus 4 times v minus 5 times 8 over v minus 4 times v minus 5 equals what we do to one side, we've got to do to the other. And what's on this side? All of this. So I just copied all of that down here. So this side only has one term on it. In other words, this entire side can be viewed as a single term. We can cancel the v minus 4s. We can cancel the v minus 5s. And we're just left with a lonely 8 on this side. Now on this side, we've really got an understood multiplication sign there. Multiplication over addition, we distribute. So v minus 4 times v minus 5 times this first term, 1 over v minus 4. Plus this copied down, times this term, 2 over v minus 5. Now let's cancel on this side. So we're going to look at each term separately. When we canceled, so for this term, we can cancel the v minus 4s. For this term, we can cancel the v minus 5s. And the denominators go away except for an understood 1. So what do we have now? We've got 8 on this side equals v minus 5 times 1 is just v minus 5. Plus this 2 times 2v, 2 times negative 4 is negative 8, minus 8. That's where that comes from. So we're left with a pretty simple equation now. So we've got 1v here, 2v's here, so 1 plus 2 is 3v, minus 5 minus 8 is minus 13. Want to solve for v, so let's add 13 to both sides. That gives us 21 on this side, and just 3v on this side since this sums to 0. Divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, times v is v. 21 divided by 3 is 7. Now it's important that you check whatever you get for an answer here is a possible solution. It is possible for rational equations to get a possible solution that makes a denominator 0. So you want to make sure that whatever you get does not make a denominator 0. So we got a 7. We go back up here. 7 minus 4 is okay. It's not going to cause, it is not 0. 7 minus 5 is not 0. This is just made up of factors, these factors. So you're not going to get 0 in the denominator in this situation. So the answer is v equals 7. And Alex just wanted, they gave you the v equals, so they just wanted 7 in the box. Any questions on this? So we've got a couple more left here. I just wanted to make sure you saw these, because you know you're going to see these topics on the exam for sure. You've got 7 known topics worth 49 points, a total of 49 points. So I want to make sure you're looking at these. So this time we have a square root equation. So the opposite of square rooting, squaring. So we want to square both sides. So we want to take the right side, put it in parentheses, square it. Want to take the left side, copy it down, put it in parentheses, and square it. This is no big deal. Squaring undoes square rooting. So we just get this radicand here, what's inside the square root, negative 7w plus 43. This is 2 of these w minus 5s multiplied together. I think you can see a common theme coming up with those. So you FOIL this, 2 terms times 2 terms. You can FOIL that. First 2 w times w, w squared. Outer minus 5w, inner minus 5w. That gives us minus 10w. Last, negative times negative is a positive. 5 times 5 is 25. And this just gets copied down. And we can go all the way to here. Actually, we talked about that. So we want to get everything on one side, and it's a good idea to keep a positive leading coefficient. We have an understood coefficient here of 1. Makes it easier to factor. So let's move this to the other side. Opposite of subtracting, adding. Opposite of adding, subtracting. So we move these over, line them up with their line them up in the column with the same variable portion. So we've got w squared minus 10 plus 7 is minus 3w, and then 25 minus 43 is minus 18 equals 0. So now this isn't too bad to factor. We're looking for 2 factors that multiply to give us 1 times negative 18, which is negative 18. And I believe Alex calls this the m and the n here. They'll do it slightly different than I do. So it's very similar though. So we're looking for factors, 2 numbers that multiply to give us negative 18. In this case, it would be 3 times negative 6. 3 times negative 6 is 18. And if you add these guys together, you get 3 plus -6, which is -3, which is what we want. So that's what we want. So we write down our factors, easy because the leading coefficient's understood to be a 1. So we have W here and here. We put 3 in one, plus 3 in one of these, -6 in the other. And we set that equal to 0. So the only way, this is a number, this represents a number. The only way two numbers can be multiplied together to give 0 is if one of them is 0. So we set this one equal to 0. We set that one equal to 0. And we solve. W equals -3 in this case, because we subtract 3 from both sides, so this is gone. W equals -3 here. Add 6 to both sides. This is gone, so we get W equals 6. Now, very important when you're talking about square root equations, the act of squaring sometimes introduces an extra solution that is not an actual solution, so you want to check in the original equation. You want to check both of these in the original equation, and this will be required for full credit on this problem. So we want to first check the -3. So if we go back to the original equation and we put -3 here, we get -3 minus 5, which is -8. If we check it over here, we get -7 times, let me just check, -3. -7 times -3 is -21 plus 43. So 43 minus 21 is, did I do that right? -7. Let me just take a look. We plug it in. W equals -3. So -7 times -3 is positive 21 plus, it's been a long day, 43. I get 64. So we get 64 inside the square root, and the square root of 64 is +8, not -8. So those are not equal. So this statement is false. So we have to cross out this potential solution. It doesn't work. Then we check this one. Turns out this one works, and I'm not going to go through that with you. I think just seeing how I did this one is probably enough. So we can move on and get to our last topic. So we would like to enlarge the number of equations that we can solve. And one way to do that is to treat them like a quadratic-like equation. And that's what's going on here. The first thing I would do is get this all on one, well, actually, we're sometime going to have to get it all on one side. And probably it's best to do it at the very beginning. I don't think I did that here, but what you want to do is this is a quartic equation. The highest power that you see is a 4. That's why it's a quartic equation. We want to turn this into a quadratic equation because we know how to solve those. So the trick here is to take whatever the variable portion is of the middle term, which if you got this all on one side would be y to the 4th minus 13y squared plus 36 equals 0. So that's the middle term. So you want only the variable portion of the middle term. You want u to be equal to the variable portion of the middle term, which is y squared. We're only going to, what we're trying to do here is to convert this to u's so we can turn it into a quadratic equation temporarily, solve it, and then we're going to convert back to the y's. So we're going to let u be the variable portion of this middle term here, which is y squared. Then we're going to square both sides here, because somehow we have to get a y to the 4th in there somehow. And the way we can do that is by taking y squared and squaring it. Because power raised to a power, you multiply the exponents and you get 2 times 2, which is 4. So we want to square both sides. So u squared, and then we want to take this y squared and square it. So this side is copied down to be u squared. This side is y squared squared, power raised to a power. You multiply these exponents, and 2 times 2 is 4. So we're now going to turn this into an equation only involving u's. So this y to the 4th here, what are we going to replace it by? U squared. So we get a u squared in front here. Minus 13. Minus 13. What are we going to replace this y squared by? U. And then we get this minus 36. We're going to put it on this side as a plus 36 equals 0. So now we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us 1 times 36 that add to give us negative 13. And they would be negative 4 and negative 9. That is positive 36. When we add those together, we do get negative 13. So that's what we want to use. So u squared, we can put u here and here, and FOIL will give us back u squared. We put one of these numbers in the first factor, minus 4, put the other number in the second factor, minus 9, equals 0. Set each factor equal to 0, u minus 4 equals 0, u minus 9 equals 0, and solve for u. We add 4 here and here, we get u equals positive 4. We add 9 here and here, we get u equals positive 9. So we're going to take, we now are in u's at this point. What is u? What's the relationship between u and y, or y squared? That's what we're trying to get to. We made that relationship, we stated that relationship initially as u equals y squared. So u equals y squared, we take out this u, replace it by y squared here, and here's what we're down to. These two squared equations here. So we want to solve these two equations. Now keep in mind, our original equation was to the 4th. This suggests we could have up to 4 different solutions, that exponent there. So when we take the opposite of squaring is square rooting, but we need to put plus or minus with one of the sides. So this, take the square root of this side, put plus or minus on this side, the square root of 4. So the square root on this side would be just y. This would be plus or minus the square root of 4 on this side, which is plus or minus the square root of 4 is 2. Similarly, over here, we take and square root of this side, we get y. This side, we get plus or minus the square root of 9, which is 3. So we really have 4 solutions here. We have plus 2, minus 2, plus 3, and minus 3. So I stated it like this: y equals 2, comma, negative 2, comma, 3, comma, negative 3, because Alex wanted them separated with commas. Any questions? Does anybody have any questions? Y'all have any questions? Let me just see. Is there any questions you have about the course in general? Let me turn on the participants. Oh, Jonathan, you stayed around the whole time. Well, thank you so much. Do you have any questions, Jonathan? Any questions, or are you good? Do you have any questions about anything?
I actually don't have any questions. I try to follow along the whole time.
Did you follow pretty well?
Yes, ma'am, I did. I tried to take note of everything that you said. I worked out all the problems, so I think I should be good.
Wow, that was a perfect way to use this session for you. That's a great use of time. I'm proud of you.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you have any questions, please reach out to me, okay?
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for attending, and good luck on the test.
Thank you.
Okay, bye for now. Hope to see you at a future conference.